As of right now, but Jaylen Brown is definitely still on the roster, still trying to prove herself. Who else we got on this list? Michaela Timpson and Yvonne Ejim.
I would say, just keeping the spacing on the floor. If I don't know what I'm doing, just be in the right spacing so other people can, open up the things that we're looking for on offense.
It's not easy going from the best of the best in high school to 5, 6, 7 minutes a game.
Definitely not being able to be on the court was hard. It was kind of like where do I go now?
I called it. The Indiana Fever just waived Yvonne Ejim, exactly like I predicted in my last video. This isn't just random roster shuffling. There's a specific reason they made this move right before the season opener. With only 10 days until the real games begin, the Fever are making their final cuts to shape their championship roster. But why Ejim? What did she do wrong? Or is this actually about who impressed the coaching staff more? Stay with me as I break down exactly what this means for the Fever's final roster spots. Kindly please like the video and subscribe to the channel to support us. Remember in my video last week when I said Yvonne Ejim was probably getting cut? Well, it just happened exactly how I called it.
Boom, another player has bit the dust. That is for Yvonne Ejim, man. Now, she was drafted 33 overall.
Yeah, just being a sponge, soaking everything up that I can, learning from the people out there, the people that I'm playing with, and just making the time that I can on the court with them.
The Fever officially announced they're waiving her, and we're only 10 days away from the season opener. Look at that timing. They didn't even wait for the final preseason game against Atlanta to make this move. Ejim wasn't terrible on the court at all. In her last preseason game, she scored 6 points in just 12 minutes of playing time. That's actually pretty good production for someone who was picked 33rd overall in the draft. She was showing some real flashes of what she could become in this league. But sometimes in the WNBA, being good isn't enough. You need to be exactly what that specific team needs right now.
Jaylen Brown is on the team a lot because of none other than Amber Cox. Amber Cox came from Dallas. From my understanding, she got a great relationship with her. She just decided to give her a shot.
I mean, come on.
The big problem for Ejim wasn't her skill. It was the numbers game. The Fever can only keep 11 players total on their roster once the regular season starts. That's not a lot of spots. And right now, they have way too many talented players fighting for those last few openings. Someone had to go, and unfortunately for Ejim, she drew the short straw. Think about it this way. The coaching staff has been watching these players every single day in practice. They've seen who's connecting with who's picking up the plays faster, and who fits their vision for the team. Ejim must have fallen just short in those areas. It's nothing personal against her. This is just the business side of basketball that we don't always see on TV. What really stands out to me is when they decided to make this move. Cutting her right before that final preseason game against Atlanta?
That was going to be cut. That was Yvonne Ejim and Jaylen Brown. Those are my two predictions. One of them is already off the board. Credibility is everything, man.
Fans are here to watch Caitlin Clark. She certainly has not disappointed in this first quarter.
That tells me the coaches already saw everything they needed to see. They didn't even need that last game to evaluate her. Their minds were made up based on what they'd already witnessed in practices and the previous preseason games. So what's the real reason they waived Ejim instead of someone else? It comes down to specific skills the Fever need around their star players. This team is building around Caitlin Clark. That's obvious to everyone. And they need specific player types who maximize what Clark does best. Ejim's skills were solid, but other players on the bubble showed better chemistry with Clark during those preseason games and practices. Let's look at Ejim's performance in that last game more closely. Yeah, she put up 6 points in limited minutes, which looks good on paper. But when you watch the game film, you see she wasn't dominating in a way that would force the coaches to keep her. She had some nice moments, but also some hesitations in the offense. She wasn't consistently creating the kind of spacing that Clark needs to operate at her best. 6 points is nice, but it just wasn't enough to separate herself from the competition for those final spots. The bottom line is the Fever waived Ejim because they have other players who fit better with their system. It's that simple. They're looking for specific skill sets that complement Caitlin Clark's style of play.
It's not easy going from the best of the best in high school to 5, 6, 7 minutes a game.
Definitely not being able to be on the court was hard. It was kind of like where do I go now?
We'll decide to pick her up, put her on a roster. But other than that, man, 28 minutes ago, the Indiana Fever stated we have Waive Yvonne Ejim. Thank you, Yvonne.
Shooters who can hit the open three when Clark draws double teams, defenders who can cover for her on the perimeter, and rebounders who can clean up when shots don't fall. This wasn't about Ejim doing something wrong during her time with the team. It was about other players doing more things right for what this specific team needs. The coaching staff is building a very particular style of play, and every roster spot is super valuable when you only get 11 total. So now let's talk about who's still fighting for those last roster spots. We've got Temi Fagbenley, Damiris Dantas, and Christy Wallace all still battling it out. These players are probably feeling the pressure right now seeing Ejim get cut. They know they could be next. I'm particularly watching Jaylen Brown closely. She's shown some good moments in preseason, but is it enough?
I think just having that flexibility and fluidity on the court really helps me just, fit into any spot that I can and hopefully bring that advantage at any position.
As of right now, but Jaylen Brown is definitely still on the roster, still trying to prove herself. Who else we got on this list? Michaela Timpson and Yvonne Ejim.
The coaching staff seems to be leaning toward veterans with proven WNBA experience for those final spots. That could put Brown in a tough position, just like Ejim. The final preseason game against Atlanta is going to be huge for these bubble players. Every minute they get on the court is basically a job interview. They need to show not just individual skills, but how they make the team better when they're out there with the core players. Remember, the Fever aren't just building any team. They're building specifically around their new superstar. Every decision they make is about maximizing Caitlin Clark's incredible passing and shooting abilities. Ejim just wasn't the perfect fit for that vision, even though she's definitely talented enough to catch on with another WNBA team. The Fever aren't playing around this season. They're building a championship team around Caitlin Clark, and that means every single roster spot matters. They're making these tough cuts because they want players who make Clark even better on the court. Watch their final preseason game against Atlanta closely.
That's when they running this motion offense stuff. When Aaliyah Boston is not on the floor, that opens the floor up for Caitlin Clark to do her thing, to dish, read and react.
I would say, just keeping the spacing on the floor. If I don't know what I'm doing, just be in the right spacing so other people can, open up the things that we're looking for on offense.
That's where we'll see who's next on the chopping block. I'm telling you right now, Jaylen Brown might be in trouble. She's still trying to prove herself while Michaela Timpson has been impressing the coaches. You heard it here first about Ejim getting cut. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my next prediction about who makes the final roster.